Hello and welcome back to Calathea. In the last episode, we finally broke ground on the island at the north of the map and put in a ferry service to bring people over from the three nearest districts. This island has a pedestrian zone with loads of shopping malls, a small boulevard in the town centre, an international ferry harbour, and a relatively small town on the south of the island. I did have quite a lot of issues with this build. At one point I did a combination of a pavement, a pedestrian road and a quay, and unfortunately it just ground everything to a halt and I had to spend a good few hours trying to fix it. I managed to get rid of all of the things that were causing the conflicts, but unfortunately there is still quite a bit of lag. There is also a huge amount on this map now, so I'm not surprised it's struggling to keep up, and in the last episode we finally hit the Megapolis population milestone for this map. We hit 65,000 residents and we've already gone above that, and it will keep growing in the background as houses upgrade. In today's episode, I'm going to be working with this island again, and I'm going to be building on the middle section. I mentioned in the last episode that there's going to be a park here, and we did get a correct guess in the comments that it's going to be a zoo. I love working with the zoo park type. The assets are so detailed and so big, and you can really get creative with it. So the zoo is going to be on this piece of land down here. I'm going to be doing a little bit of terraforming as well to make some hills and some cliffs and some lakes, because this is a kind of boring piece of land, and even though the zoo assets are big, this is a huge piece of land to fill with just a park. I am going to be mindful about the amount of people that this park is going to bring over, because at the moment we only have a ferry to get over here and each of the ferries is completely full and there's always people waiting to get here. I've upped the amount of vehicles on the ferry line for now because there's over 1,500 people waiting at the capital stop, so I'm going to have to consider putting in an additional form of transport to the island. I'm going to continue this road down all the way to about here, and then the main entrance of the park is going to be up here. I'm going to need to utilise this lower piece of ground for the aquatic centre, but it will at least make it a little bit more interesting with things on different heights. So the first thing that I'm going to do is pull the road across and do the entrance. So I've done the entrance to the zoo and a little bit of terrain adjustment just to flatten out the land and make it a little bit more interesting. This bit down here is going to be where the aquatic centre is. I'm also going to put some other assets on this higher piece. There's going to be lots of bridges connecting them all together. I made a sort of hill mini mountain range in the middle. I feel like this gives it a very tropical vibe, and this is a tropical city build. And I tried to make it look like there was once a water source up here and that this was a river that would flow down from the top of the hill. Kind of dried up bed here, and then you can see where it would have flowed down, and this is where the river used to flow, but now it's just its own lake. And the one round here would have been connected as well from that way. I actually got this idea from trying to make a waterfall in one of my other games. It was one of the first times that I tested out the water source tool. It was a bit ambitious for me to try that without having any idea what I was doing, but the way that the water fell down the mountain in very natural pathways kind of inspired me to build this. I also took inspiration from Few Candy from one of her builds in Solitude, where she made a waterfall down the side of a mountain and lined the edges of the river with rocks. The assets are going to be fairly spread out over this piece of land, and I do want to put some other things in here as well because I know that it can be quite limiting with just the one park type sometimes, so I may add some other assets from the other park types just so that they have reason to go out to the further reaches of the park. Now that I've got all of this laid down, I'm going to get stuck into building. Okay, so here is the basic outline of the zoo. I think there's at least one of every asset in here. I may have missed one because it is difficult to keep track of which ones you put in and which ones you haven't after a while. Obviously it looks quite empty right now. I am going to do some detailing, but I've noticed that the traffic is backing up quite a lot and I've had to add some new car parks because they were getting really busy. So before I go any further, I'm going to pull a line of public transport out here. I was thinking of just doing a bus, but the bus is going to add to the traffic on the roads, and there will be other stuff up this end of the map eventually, so I don't really want it to become too busy. So what I was thinking of doing instead is doing a cable car. Now I've never used the cable car before, and I only just thought of it, so I haven't actually practiced it or tried it out in any other way. So this will be my first time trying to use this method of transport. But I thought there's this lovely mountain on the side of the zoo and you can't really get the Sims to use it in any way if there's no pathways or if there's no attractions up there. So what if I were to run a cable car that goes from the edge of the pedestrian zone down here up to the top of the mountain and then down to the entrance? Then they could get a great view of the park as they go across, and it will be the last form of public transport that we haven't used yet. So I'm going to try and put one in. I may do it wrong, but you'll get to see me try it out for the first time. So it seems to be working. I guess you can't control how many cars it puts out. I guess it will just be on a continuous loop, but it looks like the views from up here will be pretty cool once the zoo is finished, and it actually goes right over this lake here, so they'll get to see pretty much everything in the city from up here as well. So I'll definitely be doing this as a first-person journey at the end of the episode. Hopefully people will start to use this to get to the zoo now because the car traffic is getting really bad, and it's also making the traffic in this district really bad as well. So fingers crossed that this will take some cars off the road. I'm going to do some detailing to fill in a lot of the gaps. Most of the detailing is just going to be trees, but there's going to be some props and maybe some more terrain adjustments here and there. Okay, I think I'm just about finished with the zoo. There's a lot of trees here and it's probably not doing my computer any good, but I hate having that empty ground, and the trees just help to make it feel so much more full. There is a tiny bit of detailing around with things like rocks and a few food trucks and some terrain detailing. It kind of makes it look like it's in a bit of a bowl here because it's got this raised terrain on all sides. I love this bit down here that's kind of the mountains kind of flowing down into the cliff. And this little viewing platform down here, you can see so much of the rest of the city from that. I've used a few assets from the other park types like this playground and a plaza, mainly because I didn't want to keep using the same zoo assets over and over again, and there aren't many non-animal related zoo assets other than the restrooms, the cafe and the souvenir shop. But I think it looks pretty good. I'm glad that I've used lakes to break it up a little bit, and it gives me a chance to use the pathway bridges. They've got this really lovely like hanging ivy detailing that you obviously wouldn't get if it was just on the ground. I tried to make the entrance as grand as possible by putting the insect tool at the end. It's quite a nice building and it looks a little bit like the Oppression Office unique building that you can get. I also really like the monkey one as well, but it's a little bit smaller, so I thought I'd put it back here. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like anyone is taking the cable car yet, and I don't know why. So the roads are still really busy. So I might put in a bus route just to get some cars off of the road, and then maybe over time people will start using the cable car as well. This was a really fun build to do. I love making zoos. This has really helped to make this island feel so much more full. I've only got 2 episodes left until Cities Skylines 2 comes out, and I cannot believe how fast it's come around. It feels like only yesterday I was deciding whether to do this series or not, and now we're nearly at the end of it. I'm very happy that we've hit the population marker and that we've got to use pretty much every single piece of land in Calathea. Obviously there's still lots of empty gaps, but like I mentioned before, I'm going to fill those up over time, and I'm going to give you updates as time goes on after this series finishes. The north part of this island is going to be more hotels and tourism. I may do this in an episode, I may not, depending on what I've got left to do, because I have to be very, very selective at this point. But getting to the north part of this island will allow us to put another ferry route in over from this district here. We can pull one over from this beach and then have another route of transport onto the island. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I'll be back on Tuesday with another one, but until then, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.